Most people believe that to learn faster, they need better tools like better apps, better notebooks, or more hours in the library. But there is a hidden mechanism inside your brain that dictates your success more than any external strategy ever could. It is called metacognition. Metacognition is quite literally thinking about thinking, while cognition is the act of having a thought. Metacognition is the awareness of that thought. It is the ability to stand outside yourself and observe how you are processing information. Think of it as a spectrum. At the low end, you might realize you're frustrated because a problem is hard. At the high end, you recognize why it's hard and you choose to switch your mental approach. This transition from struggling to adjusting is the hallmark of a master learner. However, to fuel this high-level mental observation, the brain requires an immense amount of biological energy and focus. This is where the practice of semen retention becomes a foundational pillar for the modern student. By redirecting the body's creative energy away from physical release and toward cognitive development, you provide your nervous system with the raw fuel needed to maintain the intense self-awareness that metacognition demands. If you want to learn to play a sport or build a physical object, there are tangible results. If the ball goes into the water, you know your swing was off. In learning, the process is invisible. There are billions of neural connections firing in your brain to consolidate memory, but you can't see them. Because we can't point to a thought and say that one is broken, we often repeat the same ineffective study habits for years. Many people feel they hit a ceiling in certain subjects, chalking it up to a lack of talent. In reality, it's often just a lack of mental flexibility and a deficit in neurological drive. When you practice retention, you are essentially increasing your baseline of dopamine and testosterone, which sharpens your focus and provides the biological pressure needed to break through these invisible barriers. It makes the invisible visible because your mind becomes a high-definition instrument, capable of noticing the smallest flickers of distraction or poor logic. Since thoughts are invisible, we must track them by building what we call a mental radar. This radar doesn't look for the thoughts themselves, but for the perceived mental effort. Think of a simple math problem like 5 plus 5. It requires almost zero effort. Now, imagine a complex mathematical proof. The effort is massive. That feeling of brain strain is your entry point. Your radar needs to be tuned to detect the exact moment your mental effort rises or falls. For many, this radar is broken or foggy due to constant overstimulation and energy depletion. Semen retention acts as a clarifier for this radar. As your system recalibrates, you will notice a profound increase in brain fog lifting, allowing you to sense exactly when your cognitive load is too low. When we read a book or watch a lecture, our mental effort often drops to near zero. We become passive. We are seeing the words, but we aren't processing them. This is why you can read a whole page and realize you have no idea what you just read. Your brain essentially switched off because the pattern was too simple, and your internal energy was too low to force engagement. To train your metacognition and harness your retained energy, you need to make the invisible visible. Try this exercise during your next study session. Take a piece of paper and draw a line down the middle. Label one side A for active and the other P for passive. Start your session with an active goal, such as intending to explain the core concept to a peer. While you read, check in with yourself. The moment you realize your mind has drifted or you're just looking at words, mark a P on your sheet. This is the moment where discipline meets intellect. The retained energy in your system provides the willpower to not just mark the P, but to immediately pivot back to an active state. Without this internal drive, it is very easy to see the P and simply give up or continue in a daze. The goal of the mark is simply to build the habit of detection. Over time, you will find you can catch the drift earlier and earlier. Eventually, the radar will be an automatic part of your consciousness, powered by a steady stream of internal vitality. Once your radar tells you that you've become passive, you need a toolkit of active strategies to switch back. The first is the teaching perspective. Don't just read to understand, read to teach. Imagine you have to give a seminar on this exact topic in 1 hour. This immediately increases your cognitive load because you start looking for implications, connections, and potential questions. The second strategy is consolidation and mapping. Instead of highlighting text, try to summarize it in your own words or create a mind map. This forces your brain to mine the data and restructure it, which is one of the most active things a brain can do. Third, challenge the information. Ask why this is true or in what scenario it would fail. This moves you from memorization to true expertise. These strategies require mental calories. If you are depleted, these tasks will feel impossible. But with the clarity and aggression that comes from retention, you will find yourself attacking the information rather than just receiving it. You become a predator of knowledge. To sustain this for 40 minutes and beyond, we must discuss the neurochemistry of long-term learning. High-level metacognition is physically taxing. It consumes glucose and requires high levels of acetylcholine, the neurotransmitter responsible for focus. When you retain your seed, you are preserving the very building blocks that the brain uses to manufacture these neurochemicals. This creates a state of neurobiological abundance. While most people are operating on a deficit, struggling to pay attention for more than 10 minutes, you are operating with a surplus. This surplus allows you to enter a state of deep flow where time seems to disappear. In this state, the A and P columns on your paper start to shift heavily toward the active side. You move from being a student who survives the material to a master who deconstructs it. Consider the historical context of this discipline. Many of the greatest polymaths and thinkers in history spoke of the need for temperance and the sublimation of energy. They understood that the creative force used to generate life is the same force used to generate ideas. When you waste that force on fleeting pleasure, you are literally draining the battery of your metacognitive radar. You are making your internal vision blurry. By choosing the path of retention, you are sharpening the lens through which you see the world. You are ensuring that every hour you spend studying is actually productive, rather than just being time spent sitting in front of a book while your mind wanders. As you progress into the second half of your study deep dive, you must focus on the concept of relational learning. This is where you connect new information to everything you already know. Passive learners treat information like separate islands. Active learners, powered by the fire of retention, build bridges. You should be asking yourself how this new concept relates to your personal goals, your past experiences, and other subjects you've studied. This relational thinking is what creates long-term memory. It is the highest form of metacognition. It requires you to hold multiple complex ideas in your mind at once and look for the patterns between them. This is where the increased working memory from your lifestyle choice becomes your secret weapon. You have the RAM in your brain to process more variables simultaneously. The journey of the elite learner is one of constant refinement. You will have days where the passive marks outweigh the active ones, but because you are practicing retention, you will have the stoic resilience to analyze those failures without emotional collapse. You will see a P on your page not as a sign of stupidity, but as a data point. You'll ask, was my sleep poor? Was I distracted by my environment? Or did I let my energy slip? This level of objective self-analysis is what separates the top 0.1% from everyone else. They don't just work harder. They work with a level of self-awareness that is almost supernatural. They have built a radar that never sleeps. In the final stages of your mastery, you must realize that learning is not just about passing a test or gaining a credential. It is about the transformation of the self. Every time you catch yourself drifting and force your mind back to an active state, you are strengthening the prefrontal cortex. You are literally rewiring your brain for dominance. This neurological strength spills over into every other area of your life. You become more decisive, more present, and more capable of handling stress. The discipline of the mind and the discipline of the body are two sides of the same coin. By protecting your energy and training your metacognition, you are building a version of yourself that is fundamentally different from the average person. You are becoming a force to be reckoned with. Take this knowledge and apply it. Don't just listen to these words. Execute the AP method. Start your retention journey if you haven't already. Watch how your radar begins to glow with a new intensity. You'll start to see the flaws in your own thinking, the gaps in your knowledge, and the path to mastery with startling clarity. This is the art of thinking about thinking. This is the power of redirected energy. This is how you outlearn, outwork, and outlast everyone around you. The invisible world of your thoughts is now under your command. Go forth and conquer the material. The journey to the top of the intellectual ladder is paved with the discipline of the self. Your mind is your greatest weapon. Keep it sharp, keep it fueled, and never let the radar go dark. Furthermore, we must address the psychological barrier of resistance. Every time you attempt to move from a passive state to an active one, you will encounter a wall of resistance. This is your brain trying to conserve energy. It is a biological survival mechanism left over from a time when calories were scarce. In the modern world, this mechanism works against you. It wants you to take the path of least resistance, to scroll, to daydream, to consume without producing. But when you are in a state of retention, your relationship with resistance changes. You begin to crave the friction. You realize that the friction is where the growth happens. The metacognitive radar becomes your tool for seeking out that friction. When the radar detects a drop in effort, you don't feel guilt. You feel a call to action. You lean into the difficulty. This is why practitioners of this lifestyle often report a superpower level of productivity. It isn't magic. It is the alignment of biological drive with intellectual purpose. Think about the quality of your focus. Most people have a fragmented focus. Their attention is pulled in 1,000 directions by notifications, lust, and low-level anxieties. Metacognition requires a unified focus. It requires you to point the entire lighthouse of your consciousness at a single point. If the lighthouse bulb is dim because your energy is depleted, you won't see anything. But if that bulb is powered by weeks or months of retention, the light is blinding. It pierces through the complexity of organic chemistry, the nuances of macroeconomics, or the logic of high-level coding. You see the structure of the information, not just the surface details. As we reach the conclusion of this 40-minute deep dive, understand that this is a lifestyle, not a quick fix. You are building a mental cathedral, brick by brick. The AP sheet is your blueprint. Metacognition is your architect. Semen retention is your foundation. Without all three, the structure will eventually collapse under the weight of complex challenges. But with them, you are invincible. You will look back a year from now and realize that your baseline passive state is now more active than most people's peak performance. You have raised the floor of your potential. You have become a master of the invisible realm. Keep the radar on. Keep the energy high. The world belongs to those who can think about their thinking, while others are simply reacting to the world. Conquer your mind, and you will conquer your life.